So I think it's on. I hope people can hear you actually.
Yep. Okay. It sounds on. So let's go ahead and start this. Today is July 24th, Friday, and this is Bearcoin Bear Live with Mderasse and EffectstoCause, and I am the Blue Links. We've got a few points that we really want to talk about, mainly give an update to the community. Um, as everyone knows, the Varium release is not quite ready yet as expected. So we'll touch on that and maybe get a little update on where things are going, what the hiccups were or are, and I'll let you guys kind of describe what the situation is.
Sure. Do you want to do that, Mderasse, or you want me to?
I can go, no worry. Basically, as you might know, the release date was by end of June. We was planning to release, and actually was like few minutes ago from releasing.
Literally.
Duke already prepared all the version for Mac. I was working on preparing the Linux. Actually, we released a few beta to a few of our users. And thanks to them because they report few bugs that we fixed. But sadly, we found an issue in the library that manage the consensus. So basically, the blockchain, and especially around the fee implementation. And if we had released like that, what would have happened is potentially some people would have been able to hack the stuff to send some fees of 0 or 0.1 and not the 0.2 that are expected for Varium. So we decided to work on that. I was hoping it would have be done fast. Sadly, we run into some crazy thing about Bitcoin because the implementation of the fees in Bitcoin are 0.19, which actually is the base of the new Varium wallet. Is way more complicated than what it was in the previous one, and we have to clear a lot of parts of the codes which are currently not necessary for Varium, and it's taking a bit more time than expected. But believe me, guys, we are working hard on it. I'm doing some pull requests like every day, talking with the team every day about that, and we really want to release the wallet as soon as possible. Because I think we have to release. I mean, that's important. And so meanwhile, I also have started to work a bit on the Vericoin wallet, but I did some basic stuff. I didn't go further because since the Vericoin wallet will be based on the Varium wallet, we'll use that base and adapt it. It really is kind of stupid to start without all the changes that we made with Varium right now. I would also like to thank a few guys in the community that reached out to me asking what they can do to help. A lot of people reach out to me about the beta, which I share with them. Some people reach to me like about what can I do. I have a bit of development skill, but not in CPP, but more in Node.js or stuff like that. And actually, they are currently working on implementing a blockchain explorer with a few features like link to some exchange to have some chart about how it's moving and stuff like that. And after, I know that other guys want to help on the documentation, improve the wiki, and I'm working on changing the full infrastructure in the back of the very economy, in order to have more powerful servers and cheaper than what it is right now, in order to be able to deploy more app and kind of be more flexible on what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Go ahead.
I was just going to add a couple points on top of what Mderasse was saying. Yeah, so it turns out that it's not a big problem or anything. But basically, Bitcoin, because of Bitcoin's limited block size of 1 megabyte, they have put in an extremely complex, which Mderasse is basically stripped out now, but an extremely complex fee managing system to try and estimate a moving fee and have multiple fee thresholds and all this complex machinery basically in the code logic to handle the problem which they have, which is there's essentially not enough capacity on the blockchain, and there ends up being a fee market. And how do you reduce the fees as much as possible? And blah 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 blah. This is like a long-standing problem on Bitcoin. We don't have this problem partly because
Can you mute your mic? Yeah. That's
okay.
okay.
So we don't have this problem on Varium, partly because we don't have as much usage, but also because even if we did, we have more capacity. And we also have a system that would auto manage that capacity without hitting a block cap limit nearly as easily, and thus not resulting in a fee market. So basically, Mderasse, like I said, stripped out all this extra, honestly, overly complex, and in my mind, potentially vulnerable to attack code, because you could potentially manipulate the fees in a number of different ways. It could be found out over the next coming years. I don't know, but it's really overly complex. We stripped it out, and we're implementing our very simple fee structure. That we will also transition, as we've said, to a lower fee structure at a future release. But now we're just essentially kind of replicating the simplicity of the old fee structure in the new wallet, which has many other conditions that we had to account for first. That was a bit unexpected. Beyond the fee complexity and issues in current Bitcoin, everything else has really been a nice upgrade, I would say, in terms of the wallet back end. I mean, everything else has been optimized. It's better organized. The code, the libraries are in some cases better, and so on and so forth. And then the work that we've done in integrating our old features has been simpler and cleaner and more concise than in the previous version. So everything is better except for this rat's nest that was fee handling management functions in the new Bitcoin that we didn't realize when we were preparing to release how tall of an order it was to kind of get us back to a simpler state. But we're basically there now. I think we maybe have like a couple more commits to go that are pretty straightforward. And then we can release the Varium wallet and move on to Vericoin development.
Any projection? I mean, I hate doing that, but
I mean, what do you think, Mderasse?
your mic might be muted still. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think yeah, really what we are doing on the wallet is moving us forward, and the implementation is for sure cleaner than before. We are moving to a more recent Bitcoin version, which opened way.
Kevin was wondering when we might release 1.3.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I don't. We don't want to put. We don't want to put a. I know
We don't
this
have
is
hard
a
data.
common trend. We don't need a date. I'm just wondering if there's an estimation based on, and if it's hard to estimate, it's hard to estimate. But I was just wondering if, if you can project. Maybe it's not. If you can't, then don't. I mean, but if you felt like, oh, you know what, I think I can get it done in a week or whatever, then that's fair to say. If not,
I want to be able to release for sure in less than a month. But yeah, every day I'm really working hard on that to be able to clean the fee system in order to move forward. And the problem is every time you clean something, you find actually that you have to clean something else, and you always have that little stuff that come in the way, and you are like, shit, I was about to, yeah, I was thinking we are ready to release, and yeah, you put your finger
Okay.
on the little point. Um, so I want to say in less than a month, I mean, the wallet was working fine except that, and I think yeah, we are moving forward. We are having more and more help. Uh, so yeah, in less than a month, I would say.
Yeah, and on the aspect of getting more and more help, I know that you said that there's people in the community that have reached out, and obviously there's some that want to help and aren't able to, which is understandable, and that's fine. It's the fact that people want to help in any capacity is good. Now, I do notice that there was somebody new that joined the chat or joined the Slack channel a couple days ago. I'm assuming he's somebody you know, Armaros. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Armaos. Is
Yeah, actually, he's not new in the community. I mean, he was there like a long time ago, and because of yeah, some reason like not seeing much updates, stuff like that. I mean, I think we all felt like yes, there was a bit a slowdown in communication and stuff like that. And so yeah, decided to leave the project. And with the recent event, everything that started to move again. Uh, and the communication, I mean, we start to put some news on CoinGecko, on Delta, on Blockfolio, on all those platforms.
Okay.
He was actually surprised to receive some notification about the change, about that there is some new Verium wallet, Verium vaults that are coming out, that we are working on Vericoin, and he decided to reach out again. And since I was talking a bit with him before he left, he came to me and we talked a bit. I know, so Armaros is a French, but actually he's not living in France, but yeah, whatever. I know that he have a little development background, but more oriented in the direction of Node.js. So yeah, kind of that. He did a app for pull stat, stuff like that, a long time ago on Android. And he contacted me and we talked a bit, and he was like, yeah, it could be really interesting if I can join and work on something. And he wasn't feeling ready to work on the Vault, on the Verium Vault and on C++. So we talked a bit about it and decided to start to implement a block explorer for Verium and Vericoin, which will implement additional information such as chart about the different exchange that we are on, like to have the sell wall and stuff like that. Include the news inside and stuff like that.
Okay.
After I receive a few messages like from someone that is here since like ever in the community, Trini Trotoluen, which actually manage a pool in the community. And he contacted me about wanting to help. We was talking about documentation, and you want to kind of try to update the documentation which is actually on the wiki. So yeah, it will help in that. And yeah.
Well, in my opinion, as the community gets more active and more involved, and there's more development help coming in, that should hopefully breed more interest as well. So we see an example of this here. So as things are happening, someone else maybe wants to get involved. But what I think when things turn and we get to that same thing we saw 2017, 2018, it happens so fast. The community can swell up in a matter of no time. And where it will help is, I think, one of the other topics we want to talk about is organization. So when you go back to 2017, we didn't have, and it's not to say we've got this amazing infrastructure. Again, it is what it is, but we didn't have a lot of the things that we have in place now. So even back in 2017, Slack wasn't around. We didn't have Slack, which is right now probably the number one communication tool that the project has. We didn't have the Trello board, even though we tried to do something with that, but we didn't have a structure. We didn't have it up and running where we have that now, and that should help. So if someone can help too with some of that communication and the documentation as new people come in that want to help, that's my big thing. I think if we can get the project to that point where as new people come in, they want to help, they've got a better chance of doing it because of the infrastructure that's in place, or it's being put in place. So I know you're working hard. I mean, I don't think people realize how much you're doing for this project. It's not just the development on the back end. You do a lot with everything. You're posting the stuff on Blockfolio. You know, you're doing a lot, and I just want to make sure people understand how much he's doing. And you said something prior, I don't know if it was earlier today or that when you got involved and you decided to start getting more active with it, you weren't sure if you should or could. You said your confidence was pretty low, and now it's a whole new world. So I just want to ask you from your mindset, so maybe this can influence other people too. Like, there isn't a formal process. I mean, even me, I didn't come in necessarily and go, okay, cool, I'm going to be like actively promoting this project. I mean, yes, I did, in the sense that there were some things I was contracted to do initially, but from that point, after, everything that I've done is just because I just wanted to. But even right now, as I'm talking, I don't feel like I'm this credible expert in blockchain. I'm not. There's a ton of people that know a lot more than me. At the same time, I probably know a lot more than a lot of people as well. But the point is, I don't know everything. And there's not this moment where I'm like, okay, cool, I'm confident enough now to go ahead and do it. You just got to jump in and try, I think. You know, I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
But I mean, Mderasse is an example. I mean, he said it himself. He didn't have confidence, and now look at him. Now he's a major contributor to the project.
Yeah, and I think I also will follow up on that. Mderasse is doing amazing stuff right now, and everyone should, at the very least, people shouldn't be giving him a hard time. At the very least, and inevitably it still happens, but for the most part, people don't. And I will say that like it's been a process getting to this point, and Mderasse was able to go from 0.16 to 0.19 Bitcoin Core implementation and do the UI in a very short period of time. Partly it's because of the work that was done to go from 0.0, 0.8 basically to 0.16, but mostly it's because of the amount of effort and skill Mderasse applied. And mostly, honestly, like I think I said this one time before, it's really about follow through and perseverance more than anything, because we're not doing some standard protocol that people know how to do. We're figuring things out as we go. Inevitably, we're working on a technology that is not mainstream, is in its infancy in the grand scheme of things, and we're working on protocols that are original and getting them to work in a technology that is fluid and ever changing. So like it really is about, you know, can you learn? Do you have perseverance for the project, and a motivation of some kind to want to support the project, and that could come for a number of different reasons. And honestly, you know, Mderasse is a great example. He when I first was talking to him about him doing stuff, he was saying he doesn't really do much C++ coding, and now he's like just killing it on the implementation. And still, we hit these like stumbling blocks where we think we're there, but then it turns out Bitcoin literally added like 17 functions for managing fees that we have to now deal with, that in the old version was one function. So still we hit these challenges that we don't expect, but but we are 99.99% complete, almost released. We found an issue, as Mderasse was saying, where someone could have potentially took the code, changed some parameters, and been able to send fees at a lower price because of the way we had implemented the fees in the new code. So we didn't want to release and have that be a potential problem. It probably wouldn't have happened. Nobody is really, trying those things in the short term on Varium at this stage. But we don't want to cause any issues on the network. Network issues are far worse than a delay on a release. And these are the things that I always struggle with, because I've been through the period, and many of you have, where especially Vericoin, it really is only Vericoin. In the early days of Vericoin, we had many network issues because we had some lingering bugs that were undetected for a while, and in the protocol, and even in the base layer of the blockchain that we had pulled from another project. That was actually the primary issue. It wasn't even our code. It was code that came before us. But network issues are far worse than anything else. I mean, if you have a network issue, we're talking about Bittrex a little bit today. We're talking about like Bittrex having an issue because maybe our liquidity is too low for Vericoin. But if we have to contact Bittrex and tell them to turn the wallet off because the network is failing, that's going to put us on the blacklist in a totally different manner. So we have to get these things right, and that's what we're doing. And I do urge anyone to who thinks they might be able to contribute and they want to try it out. You might be surprised how much you can do. I was kind of talking to Mderasse about this. I approach things from as more of a scientist. Mderasse approaches it as more of like a software engineer. We have HD4R, who has a PhD in computer science. He's our sort of computer science authority. And honestly, without one of those elements, we can do a lot less. So if we can have more people with more diverse backgrounds, even in development or any other category, it can be game changing. I mean, we saw what happened when a proper software engineer came into the project, with Mderasse, I would say.
Yeah. And I know fighting's kind of been away. I mean, I don't know if it's worth bringing up now or not, but I'd like to see him back involved in the project, because he contributes a lot too in terms of infrastructure, and good ideas too. I got to spend time with him in Europe a couple years ago, and he's a very bright kid. He's young, so I use the word kid. But he's another person. He hasn't left, but the project has a lot of intelligent, bright minds working on it. And like Doug said, the more the merrier, to bounce ideas off, and how one person can really make an impact. And it's not just the one person, it's the one person and then their potential network. And I'll look at, like, with me, I was able to bring Michael into the fold, and then Michael was able to produce some, I think, really good quality videos and some imagery that help bring the project up a level in terms of visibility and how we present ourselves. So it wasn't me that made it. I mean, I was involved in the process of those videos, but Michael's magic is what really made them look as sharp as they could.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the person's whole network, not just that one person. So, so you want to get into obviously Bittrex is a big cloud over our heads right now, with the fact that they made the statement or the warning or whatever it is, relating to possibly being delisted.
Yeah.
We have no. Go ahead.
I can make a couple of comments on this. So literally, okay, this is the situation that we're in here. When Varium was, and how I feel about it is not the way everyone feels about it. So it's good to talk about this. When Varium was at risk of being delisted, I talked to Bittrex, and they were like, basically, your volume's too low. And I was like, Well, I mean, it's been low before, and then it's been high. And in the last bear market, we were at risk of Varium being delisted, and I basically convinced them not to delist it, and the volume went way up, and they made a bunch of money on transaction fees, trading fees, and withdrawal fees, and now we're maybe coming out of the bear market now, but we're effectively still in the bear market, and again we have a volume issue, and this time with Vericoin, and when I talked to them about Varium last time, they basically said you can hire people to add volume to the market. And I was like, you mean hire people to manipulate the market and put like fake money into it? And they were like, well, we don't condone that, but like there's people that will just do like trading and I was like, man, like this is some BS.
The whole world though is this way now, where what's real, what's fake. I mean, to an extreme example, right? You got Major League Baseball starting last night, and no fans in the park. It is what it is. It's the reality. There's no fans in the park. But Fox is going to be having these virtual fans in the stadium with virtual reactions, and it's just like, what is real anymore?
Yeah.
And
And then
unfortunately, we
you-
live in this world where you could be some douchebag with X amount of Instagram followers that you bought,
yeah,
and because you have 200,000, 2 million fake Instagram followers, you now have this credibility, but in reality you have nothing. I mean, and so the idea of saying, oh well, let's just have fake liquidity, and the reality is there's probably a ton of coins that have fake liquidity.
oh yeah. So I mean,
So
the fact that they suggested that means that's probably what the
right,
majority is doing.
and so we do things by the transparent and ethical and holistic and the natural way, and yet we're penalized. At the same time, I also understand that we do have to get things moving, in the sense of, you know, the only way liquidity happens naturally is because people
Or
excited, they want to get involved, and they're buying it. Like, look, there's a few other projects that I own some um you know coins on, and I looked at those projects. I'm like, okay, I like, I'll give you one is BAT, basic attention token.
Hmm.
When it first was announced, I thought, good idea, but come on, this ain't gonna take off. There's no way in the world they're gonna make this work. But I bought, I don't know, 200 or whatever, as a matter of principle, because I wanted to support the idea of that project. I liked what they were trying to do.
Hmm.
But then I start looking, I'm like, well, shit, they're getting actual users. People are actually using the Brave browser now. So I guess where I'm going with this is, there, I bought some thinking, okay, I'm going to support the project. I'm going to hold it long term. But if you buy something at, I don't know, let's just say 20 cents, and then you look and you're like, oh, it's $1 now, it's natural. You're going to say, well, maybe it can go to 10 or 100 or whatever, but maybe I should sell some of it, depending on how close you are to the project. But my point is, liquidity happens naturally,
Hmm.
right? Because at some point you say, well, and there's a second side of this other than greed. I give away Vericoin in small doses as I can. Like, I'm not trying to sell it. My point of doing that, and the point of liquidity, is you want more people owning Vericoin. Because if I bought every Vericoin that existed on the market, it's stupid. It's not. You want to have more people having. So I guess where I'm going with this, liquidity is important in the sense that you want more people, not necessarily trading it, but more people that are possessing it.
Hmm.
And at some point, they're going to be tempted to say, let me sell some of it. And if that point of selling some of it isn't just because, okay, cool, I'm going to cash out, but there's other people that want to buy it, I want them to hold it as well. That's really what this is, in my opinion, why liquidity matters.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, this was coming up in the Slack a bit. I refuse to be associated or part of or have any like active volunteer be part of that I'm aware of any kind of market manipulation. Now, if people do it on their own, it's a free market in more senses than the regular market is. So there's nothing I can do about that. But what I don't want to do is have some people have essentially insider information about what the market may or may not do because of how they're manipulating it. That's on like the more direct team of volunteers.
Yeah.
And have a discontinuity, basically have a loss of trust. Like ultimately that would result in a loss of trust between like voluntary team members, active volunteers in the project and the community at large. So if I was part of a scheme of adding volume to the market, I inherently would know things about the market that others wouldn't, and that would give me an unfair advantage. I don't want to be any part of that. If someone does it on their own time, it is what it is. But so I have a principled disagreement with project leaders of any kind participating in this kind of market manipulation stuff. Does that ultimately mean we may end up off of Bittrex? It's possible. I mean, right now it looks like that might happen. But to me, it's the only way.
Now, I'm my stance on it. I'm pretty ethical, and I'm not going to manipulate anything on my own either. Now that doesn't mean I'm not going to maybe trade some. And here, so
Yeah.
Again, I'm just being 100% transparent with everyone. There may be some times when I'll sell some Bearcoin, and as soon as it goes back down to a price, I'm ready to buy. I'm acting in some level of liquidity just from the standpoint of like, okay, I don't want to sell, but like I go back to my example, at the same time, I don't want to have so much of it either where I'm, I don't want to say a whale, but it doesn't make sense for me to own a huge chunk because that to me, that's not what this is about. I'm not trying to get to be a millionaire tomorrow because of this project. I buy some, I hold a fair amount so I can maybe do well if we go back to where we were in 2018. But a lot of it, like I said, I like to give it away. I like to give 15, 20 away to people at random times for random things. So I'll buy a chunk with the idea I'm going to give it away, but I'll also sell some sometimes, but then with the idea that, okay, I'm going to buy it right back if the price goes down at some point. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it's manipulating anything. It's just basically saying I've got a certain amount that I want to hold in my hands and a certain amount I want to give away. And I'm going to.
No. And I think there's a big distinction. Like, also, I think one thing community members can do if they want to stay on Bittrex, if you're doing trades on Livecoin with BRC, move them over to the Bittrex, and then it'll help a little bit. You can do things like that. If you were thinking about buying some Veracoin, and you could go to either exchange, go to Bittrex. Right now, there's some things you can do, and like all the things that Kevin mentioned is totally normal. I'm talking about paying someone who's completely separate from the community to literally just do buys and sells that literally pays Bittrex artificial fund in trading fees just to keep us on there. To me, and then ultimately it is going to move the price because the volume is low. So like even if they try and write a bot that's like completely agnostic about price, which no one does obviously, but even if they really tried to do that, it wouldn't, because it would end up moving the numbers and so on and so forth. But again, this is kind of a distinction between me, someone who's like a co-creator of the project, who's an active volunteer, and what I think is suitable for someone like me to be doing, and other people in the community. So if anyone approaches me about doing adding artificial volume to the market, I will not be in any way part of it. And I think, like Kevin said, the real way to handle this, it means that we do need to step up, like Mderasse has been doing, to be quite honest. We do need to step up our activity level and our engagement and and bring more people in, bring in more excitement, and then naturally we will have better volume. Inherently, in these bear market periods, it always dips very low. I mean, it's and for all projects, it dips quite low. And then obviously the large projects, their low is well above Bittrex minimum, and the smaller projects, So
So
yeah,
yeah, I was just going to bring up some questions that people have asked about this topic.
sure.
One, someone asked, did we pay Bittrex at the beginning to be listed initially? And the answer is no. As far as I know, we
No,
never paid.
we've never paid for any exchanges we're on. We've never paid for.
Correct. And this is something kind of a side note. And then, but the aspect of liquidity and what Doug was saying about, okay, make your trades on Bittrex if you can to help with liquidity issue. This is one of the reasons why I've always been against paying to be on other exchanges.
Yeah.
Because all you're going to do now is pay to be on another exchange that may or may not kick you off whenever they want.
Yeah.
And you're going to further dilute the market that we have to begin with.
Right.
And let's face it, we're still not at that point yet where we have, once you get to the point where on Bittrex, we have so much volume that then you maybe think about going on to other exchanges. But this idea of going and paying to be on other exchanges, it's been going on for years and years and years. And I can't understand the logic of it. I don't understand.
It's a complete scam. I mean, the reality is if you have good volume on one exchange, you will be added to other exchanges because they want to make money on the trading fees.
Exactly.
So if you're paying to get on exchanges, then you're basically just being scammed, because the reality is what Kevin said. They could remove you. Their disclaimer is they could remove you at any moment the following day for all they care, after you pay them 30 grand or higher, whatever it is. And and what did you do? You prepaid all their transaction fees, so they have zero risk, and they can remove you whenever they want. It's completely bullshit.
And a lot of them don't even last 6 months anyway. I mean, how many have come and gone? So this, if people can, I understand it, but if you can exert the attention and energy away from exchanges being the answer to other forms of promotion and marketing and development, that effort's much better suited, in my opinion. And this proves it. I mean, the bottom line is you want as many people to know about the project and to use, not know about the project. Okay, cool. I might be able to buy this thing for 3.5 cents today, and maybe next week it's 35 cents and I 10x my money. And okay, that's the point of it. No, get them to understand the functional value of it, the principal value of it. And again, that's easier to do when we have mobile wallets.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody wins my trivia contest or whatever, my weekend radio show, and I go, cool, you won 30 Vericoin. Their first answer is like, well, what is that? What do I need to do? Well, I can tell them what it is, but it's so cool if I could just say, here, download this app and I'm going to send it to you. Like,
right.
And when we get to that point, and I know we're getting closer and closer, that changes things a lot. It really does. It makes things much more viral in terms of people understanding it. So we're coming up on an hour. One other question was, I think we kind of touched on it. Will War, my friend Will, who brought me into this project, he asked, could we just pay? Could we just go up into Bittrex and say, okay, how much do you, what would be the liquid? Like, here's the way I would approach it. Tell me what the liquidity metric is for you guys to be happy. And then you calculate, okay, well, what would their fee be if they hit that liquidity level? We just pay them that. I mean, we hypothetically, at least, I think we're, and he didn't ask it this way, but I think the fair question to Bittrex should be, all right, what is it? Like, is it some arbitrary number, or do you have a benchmark that you want to see?
Legally, they don't really answer that question.
Okay.
And I don't think they legally either. They're one of the few actually that doesn't take listing fees.
Mm-hmm.
but they have these volume requirements, and they basically suggest you to artificially create them. So I think basically what they're doing is getting their listing fees through um, artificial volume on the lower volume coins, basically,
Okay.
essentially, and that's their legal path to not taking listing fees and not require, and doing this, that, and the other thing without overstepping any regulatory bounds. So
Okay.
you don't really get a solid answer on that, and because I did kind of talk to them about that last time, and it's all just kind of, and they also hedge everything with, well, yeah, your volume's low, but like, also like we would like more commits on Git, and like they add in like five other reasons that may or may not be impactful on right now they couldn't say that about Varium, for instance, but they could potentially say that about Vericoin. But like but in a month from now they couldn't even say that about Vericoin. So I don't know. To be honest, I mean, I've seen, I've, I mean, I literally got a phone call from the UK at 3 a.m. when MintPal was hacked, and it was two dudes who didn't know what the hell they were doing with with hundreds of millions of dollars in funds of people, and I was like, "You move the coins manually, like to cold wallets, like you don't have an automated," and it was just like, oh my god, like this is insane. Obviously exchanges have
I'm
gotten
sure.
more formal and more advanced, but in the end of the day it's a couple guys with control of millions of dollars of people's money. It's largely unregulated, starting to become regulated, which I have problems with the regulation, but I also have problems with the fact that it's unregulated. And honestly, the whole thing to me is a big mess. I don't really want to be any part of it. I feel like it's a necessary evil right now. I don't think that it's important in the long run, but it is important in the short run.
Yeah, and the short run matters because I mean the project's got to. I mean it's got to stay alive, and right now, um, the way people are going to find out about a project is because of the investment angle of it.
Yeah,
That's where we're at. So we
that's
can't ignore the fact that that is the on road uh, for now, at least until this industry gets a little bit more mature and there's more practical use in place. But as it stands right now, this is the common reason why most people get into crypto. I think there's a good chunk that get involved
you could
because they
you could have speculation and investment without a centralized exchange as well, which is starting to happen. And in that, and if you don't have a centralized exchange, then you can't necessarily be delisted either. What I'm, I guess my caveat is, I'm not saying speculative investment is wrong and it shouldn't be part of the project. I'm saying centralized speculative investment for a decentralized currency is wrong, and we will grow out of it, but we're not there yet.
okay.
How I think about it. Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted
No,
to.
no, no, no. It's fine. Yeah. No, again, this is it's a slippery slope type of thing argument where you gotta look at like the idealist aspect of it and then the realist aspect of it. And we can't ignore the reality right now. And the reality is this is why people get involved with things mostly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at an hour. I think we want to probably um end it. I'm just checking to see if there's any last questions. I don't see anything on. Okay.
Better. So there's a few questions on the Slack. First question, shall we try to contact Vitrex? So we already talked about that, and get Virion relisted. So I think the first step to get Virion relisted would be to release a new Virion Vault and to get interest in it. From my point of view, right now I understand that a few members of the community are right now a bit disappointed because of the evolution of the product. But the best way to get more people, the best way to get more people involved, from my point of view, is to communicate. And communication, there is few ways of communicate. You can put news, and that's what I'm right now doing. I'm putting news everywhere around when I can. And there is another way. It's actually reshare this news with your friends, on your Twitter account, and that's where the community need to be involved. Is please, guys, try to retweet and stuff like that when you can, and when you think the subject is interesting, for sure, and that will help a lot. Actually, that's my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, and I need to do a better job of that as well. Just I haven't been much on social media lately, for different reasons, which I don't need to get into. But yeah, I just I haven't been on much at all on Twitter. And then on Instagram, I got to the point. I know we don't do much on Instagram anyway, but I got to the point where I just kind of shut it off. So I've kind of been a little bit away from social media in the last couple months.
It's funny you say that because I deleted the Facebook app from Facebook, Instagram, and Facebook Messenger from my phone. I didn't actually deactivate my account, but the politics in the U.S. is getting crazy.
Yeah,
and honestly, I don't care what my high school acquaintance thinks about minorities or whatever. I don't really want to know, to be honest. What?
Yeah, that's where I was. It was the political aspect of it. I was just finding it was like getting to me. I mean, one way or the other. I'm not taking any sides of any kind. It was just like it's a mess, and I need to tune off of it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I'd go onto Twitter, and I follow some very, very bright people on Twitter that are inspiring.
I've been staying on Twitter, and I've been kind of unfollowing certain people that are very political right now.
Yeah.
But trying to keep it mostly topic based follows.
But even some of the people that I highly, highly respect in the blockchain space that are I won't say any names.
I know, it's bad.
But even someone that the amount of stuff he's posting that's political based, it's like, damn. So I just had to leave it. And so anyway,
activity is out the window largely right now, unfortunately.
No, but anyway, that's why I haven't been doing much in terms of the tweeting and retweeting, and also my other thing is I try to be organic about that stuff as well. You know what I mean? I don't I've never done any automated post or any automated retweet, nothing like that. I just don't buy into that. If you're gonna do it because you actively intently did it, not just because you set up a system to do it automatically.
Right.
So anyway, that's me. So, and I've told people in the community, I'm not your average marketer. I'm kind of like the anti-hype, anti-marketer. And I literally am. I don't believe in trying to sell shit to somebody by wrapping it in gold paper and still selling them shit. I don't do that. The clients I take I know that they have a good product or a good service, and I want to help promote them, but I won't take a project that, is shit that, we're getting paid to wrap it up nice and make it look pretty. I don't do that.
Yeah. And I will say, this has always been a debate within our community, how far should we go in kind of ruthless promotion or volume or whatever versus just natural, spontaneous network effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, there's a nice balance in there where you're communicating, like Mderasse is saying, which is a sort of promotion, but it's really just natural. And then like how Mderasse has been doing it. And then I think a lot of people's assumption is that if you just blast the airways as much as you possibly can, it will be better than doing nothing. And there's actually an argument against that, I would say, because we've seen a lot of projects unload a lot of funds on blasting the airways. People get to the point where, as Kevin calls it, it's like what is the term? They
White
get to
noise.
what?
White noise.
No. They get to a what's the marketing term for when they like are doing something to like download a wallet or whatever the case may be. They're getting to the point where they're actually going to start using the technology because of the kind of blast promotion, and then there's problems. It's
Yeah. Just the user experience, like that's
it's a blockchain. Oh, I have to wait for this thing to load. Oh, I can't. It's not a good phone app for my
exactly.
or whatever. And then basically what happens to those projects is, guess what? They die because they burn their fuel,
Exactly.
and then literally they have put themselves in many cases even in debt, and they literally have to fold. Like there's nothing. They killed the trust. They killed everything. We've been running for this long on a almost zero cost, almost 100% voluntary based system. In theory, that can never die. I mean, in theory, if you have no costs, there's no reason to ever die. I mean, you could measure death in different ways, but so then and this is our survival strategy. And then the long range view is we actually get to a tipping point where all these other things happen naturally. Like honestly, what happened with Veracoin in its first month. I mean, we weren't like top 10 because me and Pat were making shit up. We were top 10 because we had natural excitement, and we boom. That's when Bittrex added us. That's when Poloniex added us. That's when we went on MintPal. That's when all these other exchanges added us automatically, and it happens. So.
Yeah, no, and again, I said that from the beginning when.
So I would say if you have an idea of blasting, and then I want to hear what you're saying, Kevin. I just wanted to follow this thought up. So there's two approaches. There's the blast and die potential, or there's the slow growth, almost zero cost approach. I think and then there's stuff in between.
In between where we can't be there yet. Mm-hmm. The best is truly grassroots organic growth, because you can't stop it. It's not dependent on a budget. It's not dependent on but now at the same time, it helps to have some fuel to start the fire.
Yes,
and some that fuel can come in different ways. Sometimes it's money and advertising spend. Mm-hmm. Other times it might just be the right person falls in love with this project, right, and starts promoting it, and that fuel. The key is when that ignite or when that thing gets lit, you want to have everything in place so that the fire can spread. And the way that happens is by having good technology that's user friendly, that people can, they're not running into these hiccups. It's as new developers like, oh, interesting project, I want to help. We've got infrastructure somewhat in place so they can come in and do it. Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. It's so important to have our ducks in a row, kind of in a sense, so that when the flame hits this time, we're more prepared, because we had the flame hit in 2017. I mean, it hit. We just weren't able to keep that flame going, to be quite honest.
Yep.
So this time we need to be ready for that. And the way we get ready for that is just by having more people, more hands on deck. And we actually have more people involved in the project now than we did at this stage in 2016.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it was like a ghost town in this project.
But we can still make improvements, and we can still be bigger.
Definitely.
So, okay. All right. Anything else I saw these questions now too. Let's just see if there's any else that are worth going over. Publication of the white paper.
We're not there yet, but after we get Varium behind us, my task is going to be put POS into essentially the Varium code base, and also put my focus back on the binary chain white paper. The goal being, I think that we were talking about this once before, Kevin. I think the idea is we'll release the white paper first, and then kind of do the binary chain release after. And this is after the Vericoin wallet comes out, at least in terms of the binary chain.
Okay.
But I took a pause from working on the binary chain white paper to follow through with Mderasse and get this Varium wallet out. But I'm going to resume it once, especially the Varium wallet's out, because that's the heavy lift right now. And then I'm going to create a channel in the Slack where I put a draft. I was saying this the other day, where I put a draft of the binary chain white paper, and anyone who wants to contribute, edit, revise, will be welcome to. And anyone who does any significant edits and contributions will be added as an author to the paper. And we get that paper clear and describing the important components of Varium, the binary chain. And unlike the post paper, which was basically a description of the Vericoin protocol that we had already released, this is going to be a description of the Varium protocol that we had already released, but also a little bit more about the future that could be done with the binary chain infrastructure, and try and inspire some third-party interaction with the binary chain as well. That's going to be the other point of this paper, as well as just describing the technology in a more formal way.
Okay, there's another. This is something I'll tackle. What if we created a small? And this is from Varium Fellow. What if we? And so was the last question. What if we created a small online fundraising wallet in USD and euros that would give the marketing team a budget to spend on advertising for our project on keywords such as CPU mining, or to finance display ad costing 1 cent per click? So for example, $5 would give us 500 clicks, and of the 500 clicks, some would be interested. Okay. Here's what I think on this. I think you're hitting on the right point. So CPU mining is probably one of the things that if we targeted anything, that would make sense. So I'm for that. Now, there was a point in time when you could not run ads for crypto projects. Obviously, that's gone out the window because I'm seeing all kinds of spam. Flat out fraud being advertised on YouTube. Like, it's ridiculous. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if Google had a change and go, you know what? Let this industry self-sabotage itself, but they did a 180. They're letting anything. These are flat out fraud ads I see on YouTube right now. So if we could run something for CPU mining, I think we have a pretty good content base to pull from. I would see if Birdie would be willing to maybe update the paper he wrote a couple years ago, and we could use that as maybe like the landing page. We would need to tweak it so it's not so lengthy, or the landing page would be, the call to action would be to download that PDF on how to get started, but I don't think that article itself would be a good landing page. And then in terms of the display ads, I would even go as far as keeping it the same concept. I don't know about 1 cent per click. That's a little bit ridiculously cheap, but I get your point. Yeah, hit me up. I know we talked about this. I'm all for doing it, as long as we have a good landing page in place. And I think the thing that we would promote is actually the CPU mining and how to do it. We could even maybe do some YouTube ads as well. So yeah, I'm all for that. And as far as raising money, I'll put in the first $50 myself, my own money. I've done enough. What's another $50 at this point?
I'll put in some money too, for sure.
But yeah, let's start with like $100, see what kind of traction we get, see if we get any, I don't want to say ROI in the sense of like return on investment in dollars, but if we can measure conversions in the sense that people downloaded the wallet, downloaded a white paper or the how to get started PDF or something, then we can talk about expanding that to maybe a bigger budget if we see it's adding people to the project. Again, I'm not looking at we spend $500 or $100 and then the value. That's not measurement to me. What I want to measure is how many new people did we bring into the project. So that's fine. Yeah, I'm all for that. And then one other question, it's on mining shares, and then we should wrap it up. But it's mining. How would mining shares work exactly, and when you don't have to say time frame, but like at what point does mining shares get implemented in the
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I was actually going to talk about this a little bit if you guys were okay on time. I'm going to try and keep this concise, like less than 5 minutes. um, okay, so okay, couple things. So mining shares is going to be that concept, and the overall implementation of that is one of the things that I want to put into the binary chain white paper as an example application. And to me, it's a fundamental application for like a decentralized pool mining option. And it would be implemented after the binary chain is released, which basically means the um, the the auxiliary mining between the two chains is already active, and we start putting together the infrastructure for the binary chain itself, which, as I've mentioned in previous things, actually the simplest way to think about it is it's a kind of its own mempool. If you're familiar with the memory pool for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, it's basically like a temporary data storage for things that may or may not go on chain. I mean, they pretty much always go on chain, but in Bitcoin, if the fee isn't high enough, it might not, and so on and so forth. But basically, it's data that the network has access to. In this case, it would be, in the binary chain applications, it would be data that Vericoin and Verium network has access to this data. And it may, depending on the state of the data, whether there's a signature or whatever the application is, then some aspect of the data will end up on chain to verify the completion of the transaction, so on and so forth. Mining shares would be a decentralized way to handle people tabulating hashes that are too low of a difficulty to actually solve a block on Verium, but account for some amount of work that they can be credited for when a block is found, like a pool does, where the block is split across the miners. So this would be a decentralized way of counting hashes across the network optionally. And once a mine sharing block is found, then that block would be split to all the mine sharing miners who have put hashes into effectively the binary chain mempool that is associated with their key, that proves the amount of work that they did and the share of the reward they should receive according to that relative to the other miners. Now, there's one other thing I want to say about this. The infrastructure for this, I actually want to use for a scientific application as well, that I'm fleshing out. And I just want to give you guys a little background, mostly just to let you know the level of my commitment to the project, because if we don't release wallets in a year, people assume that I or other people aren't committed to the project, but that's actually not the case. So I'm going to get my PhD next year, and I'm going to start my independent research career next year, and I'm not going to go into details exactly, but I'm going to I plan to go to a very prestigious university, which I'll get into details once like the paperwork is done and all that stuff next year, and I'm looking to build out my own independent research from that point forward. And I'm going to recruit graduate students, top level graduate students, to work on my scientific research, which I've decided. People have asked me over the years, and I've struggled with it. Are you gonna go full-time blockchain, or are you gonna not like leave blockchain and just do science, or what are you gonna do? I've actually decided both. I'm going to stay in science, and I'm going to incorporate blockchain, namely this project. And so my goal is to next year start my independent research and start incorporating applications on the binary chain into my scientific research program that I have graduate students working on, basically, and I kind of like manage them and lead them to developing applications onto the binary chain and related technologies. One of which is identifying protein folds computationally, um, and having some sort of reward scheme for that. Now, the cool thing is we don't, and I mentioned this briefly, we don't actually have to have coins as rewards, because if they're designing new proteins that are medically relevant, let's say, those could be patentable, and we can prove that the person who found the structure, designed the structure computationally, if that technology ever becomes IP, their key would be associated with ownership of the IP, and so on and so forth. So there's ways to do this where we don't just have, like right now, scientific applications that are distributed are voluntary based. This would be, my goal would be to have a scientific application on the binary chain that's not voluntary based. There's some real incentive, there's some ownership of the IP, or some sort of reward of some kind.
I feel like it's saying too much. It's like a really, really good idea, and it's really good news, like extremely good news.
Yeah, and there's also a possibility that this kind of research could be funded by different grant authorizing organizations, and I would be actually looking for that as well. So not only could I bring people in a formal way, but I could also potentially bring in some funding to develop some of these technologies from, National Science Foundation, Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, things that grants that I've been on before for this kind of stuff, but blockchain would be the new part. Anyway, I have a lot of ideas about how to distribute scientific work on the blockchain through the binary chain. And actually, mining shares is kind of the fundamental infrastructure. The infrastructure that will be built for mining shares is the fundamental infrastructure that one would need to add all different kinds of sort of competition-based applications onto the blockchain. So that's my little ditty on.
Well, yeah, that's pretty amazing news, honestly. I don't know if anyone or everyone understood the significance of what you just said, but it's pretty massive. And I'll just say that personally, I lost my father to a folding protein in the brain.
Mhm.
So that kind of research for me personally, I want to help support it any way possible. So if this project and binary chain helps to get to that level there, I mean, that just makes me love this project even more. So it's really cool. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I think that was like breaking news kind of announcement you just slipped in at the end there. So if anyone listened all the way through here, you got some good info from Doug on that one. Cool. I guess should we wrap it up?
Yeah, we can wrap it up. Mderasse, anything else?
Nothing much. Thank you guys, and thank you everybody. And I think we should do this live more often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for it. I just like it's up to you guys. When it makes sense to do, just let me know, and I'll do. Again, I don't contribute much in my opinion, but yeah, I'll do them whatever you guys want.
Okay, so thank you guys, and yeah, I stay available at least on the Slack and review of the platform.
Okay. All right. Take care.
See ya.
All right. Bye.
All right, see you guys.